What makes a game addictive? What gives you that itch? That glance at your watch, that subtle lessening of all your other priorities that ends in, yeah, go on then, one more. Is it a game's length or simplicity? Is it a sense of story, either scripted or emergent? Is it a very slight failure of luck or strategy, something that lights a redemption-starved fire under you? Is it a spike of adrenaline, fleeting highs cut with crushing lows, but those highs are present enough just to keep your blood aching for one more hit? The answer is obviously yes. And I'm going to try and use some of these over-articulated concepts to try and explain why, out of all the board games I own, and it's a few, why this teeny, boring-looking game about bulls and numbers is the game that out of all of them, I've played the most, and it's not even close. Hello, I'm Adam from No Rolls Barred, and welcome to Board Game Masterpieces, where we take a game we believe to be an absolute essential purchase and give it the works, a brief history, a how to play, and a review, all wrapped up in a red rag. Because this is Six Nimmt, a game about bulls and also numbers. Yay! It's a game so small you could lose it, and I have, twice. It's one of the most unassuming games I've ever seen. This is Nemesis. This is Six Nimmt. This has hundreds of cards, insane production value, and more plastic to sink a Mean Girls themed cruise liner. This has 104 cards, most of them are plain, all of them have numbers, and look, the writing on this box is even in German. How dare it! Six Nimmt came out in 1994. It turns 28 this year, and while that may not seem very old compared to a building or a bit of wood, it's older than Terry, and in board game terms, it's 1 year older than Settlers Catan, and that's the oldest game ever made. How old are you, Terry?
24.
Fuck you! Six Nimmt was originally designed by Wolfgang Kramer, who is the John Ford of the Spiel des Jahres. And isn't that just a bunch of information that's useless to 65% of you? The Spiel des Jahres are the oldest and most prestigious board gaming awards in the world, and John Ford is the director who's won the most Best Director Oscars in history. There we go. Now I can say that first sentence again, and it'll actually mean something to you. Six Nimmt was originally designed by Wolfgang Kramer, who's the John Ford of the Spiel des Jahres. For real though, while his name might mean nothing to most people, and even, if we're being honest, most modern board game fans, Kramer is a giant of the industry. Games that he's had a hand in designing have won the Spiel des Jahres Best Game of the Year award 5 times. The most in history. He's the Booker T of the Spiel des Jahres. One more gong than that loser John Ford. And that's not even taking into account the fact that Six Nimmt, his most enduring game, after El Grande, maybe, didn't even win the Spiel des Jahres prize. You know the scoring track that goes around the edge of the board that most Euro games from Ticket to Ride to Terraforming Mars have? He invented that. In Germany, it's called the Kramerleister. He's a legend. The point is, the board gaming world is a better place for Wolfgang Kramer. And also, here's a picture of him. Look how nice he seems. Since its inception in '94, Six Nimmt has stuck around and around and around and around and also around in a way that most games simply don't. Like, sure, it's a deck of cards and easier to reprint than bigger mediocre games, but there are thousands upon thousands of card games released every year which we completely forget about after 12 months, never mind enough time for a 25th anniversary edition of the game to come out. Point is, people really like Six Nimmt. Why? Well, as usual, the answer to that begins with how the game is played. Six Nimmt is a deck of cards, numbered 1 to 104. Why? I don't know. Why do all the cards have icons of bulls on them? I don't know either. Shut up, I guess. Every player is dealt 10 cards to start, with then 4 cards from the deck being placed like this on the table in front of everyone. Now these are the starts of rows, and over the course of the game, cards will be added to these rows. Every turn, every player will pick one of the cards from their hand and play it face down in front of them. When everyone's picked a card, all the cards will be turned over, and then starting with the lowest card and going up in numerical order, each card will be added to one of the rows next to the existing card it's closest to without going under. Then everyone picks another card from their hand and goes again. Now everyone starts with 10 cards, so each round will consist of exactly 10 turns with everyone running out cards at the same time. The aim of the game is not to pick up any of these cards. These cards are all worth points, and points are bad, and you don't want them. If you do pick up cards, they will go next to you, not in your hand, to be counted up at the end of the round. And how many points a picked up card is worth is denoted by the number of balls at the top and the bottom. This card is worth 1 point, this card is worth 3 points, and this horrible mother is worth 8. Spoiler alert, you really don't want this one. All of this begs the question, how do you end up picking up these cards that you don't want? Well, the main way is, and the clue's in the translated title, 6 takes. If you are the player that ever plays the 6th card in a row, then cowboy, you are in some bullshit, and you have to take the 5 cards that came before it. Your card that you played is slid down to become the starting card of a brand new row, and ouch, look at all these horrible points. Don't you just hate points? However, there is one more way to pick up cards. If you ever choose to play a card that is lower than all of the available rows, so for example, this 20 is lower than 21, lower than 99, lower than 65, and lower than 68, then you have to take one of the incomplete rows of your choice, replace it with your card, and 8 times out of 10, you want to take the one worth the fewest points. This row is only worth 1, so we'll take that card and place my new one there. At the end of a round, when all 10 cards have been played, everyone counts up their points and then adds them to their running total from all the previous rounds. And then we check, does anyone have 66 points or more? No? Great! You play another round, deal out 10 more cards to each player, deal 4 more starting cards, then you go again. If the answer is yes, someone has got to 66 points or more, then the game ends. And the winner is the person who currently has the fewest points. And judging from this table that we've created, it's me! That counts as one of my board game club wins for the year. That's it. That's the whole game. It is a very simple card game. Now, it can be a bit muddy to teach because a lot of this game's theme is completely arbitrary, especially for new players. Why bulls? Why are cards that are multiples of 5 and 11 worth more points than other cards? Why 66 as a final score? The answer to all of those questions being because. Despite that, the game is simple enough that after 2 or 3 turns at most, everyone will be on board, and then everyone will start to understand, oh no, this game is going to get real tense real quick. And you'll come to realize that a game that looks this drab may actually be one of the more exciting you'll ever play. And that tension and excitement comes from the fact that the board state becomes wildly different to navigate, not every round, every few turns, or maybe even every single turn, as this just gets more and more and more crowded. For example, let's say someone plays a 104. It's the highest card in the game. No card in the game is higher than a 104. So now this row is locked off until someone plays a card that's low enough in order to take it. So this means that from this point on, without someone picking up cards, there are only 3 rows you can play cards to instead of 4. What if then someone plays the 103 on another row? Now there's only 2 rows you can play on. Suddenly, in 2 turns, the board can be reduced by half, like lanes of a motorway being shut down, forcing cars to cram into what remains, only with bulls instead of cars. Insert clip of Ferdinand.
Yep, that's me. I'm Ferdinand.
What was I going to do, not mention it? Another potential nightmare. All 4 rows reach their max capacity of 5, meaning that on the next turn, 1 or more players are guaranteed to have an awful time, creating that maximum tension as you agonize over which card to play. But then that turn happens, someone falls on the grenade, and boom, a brand new row opens up. A new row for people to suddenly pile their cards into before it fills up again. And the game ebbs and flows like that, from nail-biting fear swelling and then puncturing, causing everyone else this beautiful little burst of relief. It happens so often, and it's always a satisfying mixture of dread then catharsis, and it's so Moorish. And it completely fluctuates based on how many people are playing. In games of 2 to 4 players, it's possible that whole turns go past without anyone picking up cards, players cautiously spreading cards around the different rows, all of the rows inching slowly towards the precipice, anticipation rising and rising. However, in games of 5 or more players, it's possible that every single turn, even the very first turn of the whole game, someone could be forced to pick up a row. It could happen at any time. And what once was a mercurial Mexican standoff becomes a wild shootout. From turn to turn, your emotions could swing from almost smug security to claustrophobic terror, and I have never played a game that vacillates from safe to unsafe so quickly, nor a game where the line between success and failure is so razor thin. An example. This is the state of the board, and I'm completely relaxed as I've got 85. That is 1 number higher than 84, so I am almost 95% guaranteed that I'm going to place it here. And then, when I do, a howl erupts from another player who has played 86, just 1 number higher than me, but that relegates them to the 6th card place, and now they have to take all of these cards. And then a howl of ecstasy erupts from an entirely different player who played 89, who would have had to take all these cards were it not for the fact that 86 just ate that bullet for him, and now they slide into this brand new row with total luxurious safety. 1 simple turn with 3 hugely different emotions: smug security, outraged misery, and sudden relief. That is goddamn board games. It's intensely communal as well. Someone could be doing really well, but unlike Euro games, past success doesn't mean you're better equipped with bigger, better resources for bigger, better turns in the future. It can all come crashing down like that, and the thing is, everyone feels that. It's not uncommon for games of 6 Nimmt to reach a point where everyone has their heads in their hands making noises like, and oh god, and I'm just gonna have to go for it. I'm just gonna have to go for it. I'm just gonna have to go for it, to the intense joy that almost everyone else gets to share when they avoid bull-related disaster by mere inches. Players will constantly be taking these risks, gambling and both winning and losing based on guesswork a lot of the time, but also trying to work out the probabilities of what everyone else is keeping secret and safe in their little hands, their hands which are getting smaller and smaller, their options getting smaller and smaller until they have just 1 card left, just 1 card left, which they have no choice but to play. Every single turn is a potential disaster, forcing you to step lightly, and it's really hard to step lightly when there are goddamn bulls everywhere.
Step light, you are a feather. A 2,000-pound feather.
Which isn't to say that 6 Nimmt is pure chaos and no strategy. There is strategy. There's the long-term strategy of playing your low cards early, spending them to take rows that are shorter and worth less points, saving larger cards for later in the game when these rows start to fill with big numbers, essentially structuring your hand to avoid disaster down the road. Then there's short-term think on your feet strategy. Maybe you suddenly find yourself with a card that's one higher than the end of a row and you abandon everything to play it. Maybe trip someone else up. Or maybe a row clears up with only a single card left behind, which means you can offload one of your low cards and only pick up a card that's worth one single point. Maybe someone else will have thought the same and actually beat you to it, playing somehow an even lower card, meaning you actually get to offload your low card for free. And there's nothing more satisfying than making this sacrifice play, but someone else sacrifices themselves harder and you can just watch, place your card, and through a smile smugger than a million me's, say, thank you very much. Because yes, even though the game is chaotic and much of the time, if you end up screwing someone over, it's likely to be by accident, never you fear, dicks. There's a way to purposefully screw over your friends. Hooray! Example, say Sully here has played 91. Secure, he thinks, in the knowledge it'll be played right here, next to the 90. Right now, Sully's feeling
It's gonna be a good one. Well, I can feel it in my horns.
However, I've played this 17. It's a lower card than any of the rows, so I have to take one of these rows. Now, logic dictates I should be taking this row because it's only one card long. It's worth 1 point. However, if I decide I can take the points and I decide that Sully's had his happiness quota for this year, then I can actually instead choose to take this row. And now suddenly, Sully's 91 doesn't go here, here, or here. It goes here. And all of these cards go to Sully. Womp womp. This means there is no such thing as 100% security. In 6 Nimmt, the ground can always crumble beneath your feet. It is a wee beauty. And that's another huge factor in what makes a game addictive. For me, anyway, the failure by tiny degrees, individual lapses in judgment or fortune that make you itch to give it one more shot to get it right, to thread the perfect path through the asteroid field. When you do really badly in 6 Nimmt, you feel unlucky. When you get a perfect run, when you get through all 10 of your cards without picking up a single one yourself, you feel clever. I think what makes 6 Nimmt the most played game in my collection is that it is a game that fits every brief for a go-to easy answer to the question, what shall we play? It's portable. Like how small it is, you can take it anywhere. It plays like any number that you're likely to get together, although some player numbers are better than others. 4 to 6 is best. It's both intense enough in places to be completely engrossing, but the rules are so simple and play is so simple. Pick a card, play it, consequence, pick again. That you can have conversations over the top of it. And that helps when your board game club annoyingly really enjoy each other's company and just want to spend 20 minutes at a time just talking about each other's lives and not focusing on the game that I've just put in front of them. Pay attention! That's why people like card games. They are a compelling but not overwhelming social construct. That's why I don't really like the game of poker. It goes on a bit long. When it comes down to 2 players, I think the game's functionally broken. But I love poker nights with the pals. Are there bigger games with bigger highs, bigger stories, flashier tricks? Yes, but 6 Nimmt is my old standard for a reason because it is a good time with friends. And honestly, I know I've recommended some expensive games in the Board Game Masterpieces series. I have read your comments telling me that your wallet hates me, and I hate it as well. 6 Nimmt is a tenner. And even if I haven't sold you on this weird, small box of incongruous bovines, plain art, and a focus on the world's most boring thing, numbers. If the appeal hasn't quite landed for you, a tenner is a really cheap bet. One that could pay back dividends. Just be careful, because once you start, you might not be able to stop. Would anyone actually fancy a game? Would anyone... What? No, okay, no. Come back! I'm setting it up. Come back. Terry, come back! And that's our Board Game Masterpieces video on 6 Nimmt. Have you played it? What's the most addictive game in your collection? Let us know in the comments, and most importantly, make sure you subscribe to No Rolls Barred. Go on, scratch that itch, and get on board! Did you get it, Terry?